Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Patricio Carter, and Paul. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this Monday evening, afternoon, or night, wherever you might find yourself in the world. Just before we get into everything, we do a small bit of housekeeping and just make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure to have all of your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. It's very much appreciated. And if you're currently watching on Twitter or X as it is now, jump on over to the YouTube page where you'll find out all of our other content as well as our live streams, and make sure that you leave a like if you enjoy the content, and subscribe as well if you want to stick around for some more of it. Make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos. But with that out of the way, we have some great topics to talk about. We have Trent in his debut in the double pivot, where a lot of us would hope he'll end up playing under Arne Slot in his 4-2-3-1 formation. We have conversations about centre-backs that seem to be heating up as of late. With us really loving to get a CDM, we then have all of this centre-back news coming out. And Jamie was exactly... Mihai was in the group chat earlier watching Romania score 2 worldies and then a third tap-in and just was going nuts. I don't think I've ever seen the man happy as that. It must be nice being from a small footballing nation and actually doing well in an international competition. Not that my nation would know anything about that. But yes, James, it is a bike behind me, but don't get too excited about that. Absolute bullshitter. But we'll get into everything. First topic of the day is going to be our very own Scouser in our team who has made his debut at international level in the double pivot. Before the game, a lot of pundits, and I'll use the word pundits very loosely in this, were saying he lacked experience, that he was going to get found out defensively, and that he was going to get torn to shreds were some of the sound grabs that were being used. Eni Aluko said that he doesn't have the experience in that position, which is hilarious. Roy Keane said he'd get ripped to shreds. Wayne Rooney said that he would he doesn't want him anywhere near the midfield. And Gary Neville was probably the nicest out of the lot of them and just said that he'd get torn apart. But in saying that, Wayne Rooney, Roy Keane, and Gary Neville, absolute thespians of their managerial careers, I won't lie. It's not like Wayne Rooney had 15 games to bring Birmingham from 6th to 22nd. And it's not like Roy Keane got nearly fired from every managerial job. And we won't mention Gary Neville's managerial career. But, Patricio, Trent in the CDM role, in the double pivot, give me your thoughts on him in that position. As brutally honest, would you liked it? You didn't like it? Did you see more positives than negatives? Just an overall review of his game in the double pivot.
Yeah, I think he played amazingly. To be fair, Jude put it simply that he felt that when he pushed up, he had Trent there to cover him at the back. So I think he did a great job. He showed that he can still pass out wide. He's put a couple of balls out to the left wing and just showed that he's there ready to attack. I mean, his shots were at the goalkeeper, but I think he played really well. Showed that he can play in that midfield role, and that's where he's probably going to be best to play, hopefully under Arne Slot.
Exactly, and it's a position that a lot of us have liked him to see. Paul, you've been an advocate for him playing in a lone 6 role. Seeing how he performed over the weekend, would this encourage you more to leave him there as a lone 6, or do you feel he looked more comfortable with somebody of a Declan Rice ilk beside him, or do you think he needs another more defensive player beside him to support him?
Well, I don't think it would be a good idea to have him as a lone 6, at least to start. The double pivot with the 4-2-3-1 or whatever you want to call it, I think is the best option at the start. Now, one other thing about having Trent beside Rice, Declan Rice, as the last game, especially him being mostly on the right side, you would need somebody on the left-hand side to be holding the width. Because every time I see Trent with the ball, he's always scanning and looking up. And Anthony Gordon on that left side, bombing down that left wing, would have been so much a better option than to have, say, a Phil Foden clogging up the middle. Or if the left back was able to hold that width down that left side, then because it's kind of pointless in having Trent with the ball and there's no option for him to make those passes, which is his trademark. If he's just going to be making those small, short passes, then anybody can do that. So, yes, putting Trent down there can work, but the balance of the side has to be such that you can take advantage of what he has to offer. And somehow, the problem with England is that three of their top players, which is Foden, Bellingham, and probably Palmer, they all play the same position, which is a number 10. So it's kind of pointless to have both of them in the game at the same time because it just does not work. So I think if we had Eze or even say Anthony Gordon on the left, then Trent would have more options and then he would have probably a better game. Overall, I think he was decent. He not as great as we have seen him in the past, but he was certainly better than some of the other players that was on the pitch for sure. Foden was terrible.
Well, that's really not shocking. Like it seemed Foden to me, and I've always said it. He's a system player, and people can disagree with me or not disagree with me on that. But I genuinely feel like Phil Foden is a system player, and he's a product of that Manchester City system. And it in 22 appearances for the England national team, I can't name a singular game. Maybe there was one game like 2 years ago. Myself and Jay were on about it in the chat, not just before this started. Maybe a game 2 years ago. God knows who it was against, but you never hear of how he performs at an international level. Whereas you have Trent in every conversation, be it good or bad. You have Jude Bellingham that's literally broken onto the scene and now scored a goal in the opening game. And then you have Harry Kane speaks for itself, although he was absolutely abysmal. And I think this will probably be his last tournament, to be perfectly honest with you, if he continues this way. The only people that seem to excel in the international game out of City's system seem to be Kevin De Bruyne, who's just a unicorn of a player, and Rodri, who again is another unicorn of a player. But Carter, how do you feel about how Trent's debut in the double pivot 6 and how he played? He held width on the right hand side. He was obviously playing with a 6.5 or a 7 in Rice because he's more of a box to box than he is a 6. Partey will be more Arsenal 6 than Declan Rice. But how do you feel he held his own in his first game there? Do you think that you would trust him in games bigger than that, and do you think that could translate to the club level?
I really agree with Paul in the sense of you need someone who's running in behind on the left wing. That's a big issue for Trent, and I think Foden really negatively impacted most of the team. But I also think another sort of excuse for Trent is when you're next to Jude Bellingham, when Jude Bellingham plays as well as that, you're always going to look a bit like comparatively wise, he doesn't look as good as him in that position. And that's to be expected because Jude Bellingham is possibly the best midfielder in the world at the moment. He played unbelievably well. I just think the two people that I would compare him to in that role are Toni Kroos and Granit Xhaka. And the way they took control in the two games they played is what I would want to see from Trent. And I just think he has, in this tournament, I think I said before, I don't think he's going to really play well in any of the games he plays in midfield. I just think he's going to win England games playing in midfield. He's going to have bits where it doesn't look super clean. He misses a few passes, but then he'll give you 2 or 3 incredible bits of play that can win you the game. And that's why he has to play. And I think I understand the shouts for putting him in that. I think international football's so much slower and he still didn't look super clean, super comfortable receiving the ball in certain positions. And I think we do sort of underestimate how different it is playing there and playing as a right back when you only have to look at like a 90-degree angle, 45-degree angle of the pitch. So I think he could, but I just think for England, until Kyle Walker moves on, I think they're going to have to do this experiment. But I like it. I think he's going to have some games where it will be really good, but I do just feel there's going to be 1 or 2 games maybe where people are like, why is he doing this? He's just trying to be like fancy and try these quirky things. But Yeah, I'm excited to see how he does, but I think he just needs to go back and watch Xhaka and Kroos in those first 2 games and try and have as many touches and control the game as well as those 2 did.
See, he did have a lot of touches when you look at what Trent did. It wasn't, as you said, like when you're playing first of all behind Bellingham. I guarantee you put Trent up in that position where Bellingham was, and then you could even have put Bellingham in as a striker ahead of Harry Kane, to be perfectly honest, and have Trent play behind him in a 10. But realistically, I think Trent did an absolutely fantastic job, as Patricio said. It wasn't something that lit the world on fire. He just didn't make mistakes. He spread the ball out. He broke up play. He'd done what your CDM is supposed to do. And then now all of a sudden you add on top of it that he's Trent Alexander-Arnold and can put a pass on a blade of grass from any part of the pitch, and you're golden. I do think he needs extra help in a more defensive and physically imposing 6 beside him. The likes of physical profile anyway of a Florentino Luis, big, over 6 foot tall, physically strong, is able to not be bullied off the ball. Even João Neves at 5'9" is able to do that because he's a big hefty kid. Like, I say hefty kid, he's about 80 kg at 5'9". The man's about as tall as he is wide. Like, he's just a big thick man of a player. That's the only way that I can see it working. I don't see him being played as a lone 6. If we were to play a 4-3-3, he would be playing as right back and then inverting, which is where our left-sided centre back will come in that can play left back. Or if we play a 4-2-3-1, he's playing in the double pivot, and we've Connor Bradley at right back holding width. And I think, Carter, as you mentioned, somebody that's running in behind, perfect for that is going to be Darwin Núñez on the left wing, Cody Gakpo on the left wing if he wants to do that, or Cody Gakpo could sit up as the striker and put Darwin Núñez on the left wing there. Or your Luis Diaz, who's somebody that can do that as well. You've Darwin Núñez and Luis Diaz that'll run in behind, from the left wing position. And if that's the way that you're going to play it, then you can have Cody Gakpo up top. But I think anybody running in behind, because Kane is very much a ball to feet striker, and that doesn't necessarily suit Trent unless he's in a 10 position, but in a deep line playmaker position, it doesn't suit him, I don't think, myself. Ian McCarthy here mentioning obviously that the tactics were crap and not Trent. That's very true, because if you look at the numbers of the game itself in total, England are ranked 4th in the world. Serbia are ranked 33rd in the world, according to FIFA rankings. 47% possession to 53% possession in England's favour. Expected goals 0.18 to 0.52 in England's favour. Total shots 6 to 5 in Serbia's favour. Big chances 0 to 2 in England's favour. I don't mean to be smart, but after that first goal went in, I'm looking at the momentum chart here that's on FootMob. It's nearly all Serbia. So I have a feeling England were very lucky to get away with any sort. And I watched most of the game as well. It's Southgate football, as many people mentioned here. I'm trying to go up and have a look at it. Southgate is a joke. Great talent on the pitch and a muppet on the sideline. Realistically, it's not wrong. Like this would be what, his 4th major tournament? Or something like that, or is it that he hasn't been in club football in about 8 years? So yeah, it'll be about his 4th major tournament. So with that, they scored the goal and then they parked the bus, and that might work against Serbia, and it nearly didn't. But I really don't think that it'll work against bigger teams. And the second you get to the knockout stages, you'll be found out again. But it is what it is. I thought he played very well myself, and especially considering the amount of pressure that was on him, all the eyes that were on him, and everything like that too. But speaking of players that have been playing at the international level in that game as well, we also had Marc Guehi, who Crystal Palace are looking to move on for about £65 million, if he does not sign a new deal. And apparently clubs that are sniffing around that now, there's multiple Premier League clubs, and Liverpool are one of them. It's at the point now, Paul, where it's just rumour on rumour on rumour on rumour, and there's nothing really 100% concrete at the moment, until we obviously hear Fabrizio Romano or David Ornstein, Joyce, Pierce, Neil Jones, any of them mention anything. It's really just take it with a grain of salt. But we'll speculate, and we'll play devil's advocate. Marc Guehi, he's 6'1", 23 years old. he's never really jumped off the page for me at Palace. Has he ever jumped off the page for you? Now, he had a decent game last night, but Serbia never really threatened him because he had so much support around him in that they parked the bus flag. So, but give me your thoughts on him as a player. Would you like him with us? Do you think he's even worth that £65 million fee, or would you even go near him for that? You're muted, Paul. There you go.
Yeah, he's a decent player, but at that price, I don't think we'll be in for him, because I don't really see him as a big upgrade, if an upgrade at all, to Konate or even Kwanzaa. And if you're going to be spending 65 million on a defender, you would think at that price you need somebody to walk into your starting 11. So and at 6'1" is just right on the borderline of the type of defender I like. My defender must be 6'2" and above. But 6'1" is not too bad. But he always strikes me as a decent player. I never see the world-class ability in him that others seem to see. So I think it's just rumor as it relates to Liverpool. I can see a team like United interested, because they are looking to replace Harry Maguire. And if they can move on Harry and get a guy like that, but I don't think they can afford him anyway. But as far as he's concerned, I think he's just an average, a decent player, but not the kind of player that I would say world class. So I don't think we'll be in for him at all.
Yeah, Patricio, we have a number of people here saying we have people here saying, where is it? Is it where did it go? I seen it. Let him join United. Yeah, there we go. From Steve saying, let Guehi join Man United, please. And to be honest, I don't disagree with him. But news came out earlier today of, obviously, United have put in a bid for Jared Brantwaite of about £42 million. Thereabouts. Everton wanted 70 million, and United said that they had no intention of going anywhere near that. And that's down to them being flat broke currently at the moment. And Cardi, you disagreed with me on it, that they'd find the money somewhere. It's kind of seeming like they don't have the money to find. I say unfortunately, it's hilarious that finally that bottomless pit of money is being lost. But Patricio, 65 million quid for him, it just seems to be getting into silly money now. Like, I can understand Jared Brantwaite, excuse me. He's a big, brute, physical defender. Had a good stint at PSV before he came back to Everton. Possibly could regain that form again, but Everton obviously asked him to do different things. Considering that Guehi is asking, the asking price for Guehi is something similar, out of the two of them, who would you rather have?
To be honest, I think I was looking more interested in Guehi. I haven't really watched a lot of Brantwaite, so I don't really know too much about him. All I know is the fact that if we're willing to spend 65 million on Guehi, we need someone that's going to be like Van Dijk, someone that he cost us about the same, didn't he? And it took us a while to go for him. So it was a season. So we just need to find someone that we're actually certain can cover that. Because I know we've got Kwanzaa, Konate, and Van Dijk. Obviously, we're losing Matip, but I think we just need that centre back to break through, that starting 11 centre back that Paul said, not just someone that can just come in as a third option or a second option. So it has to be a starting 11. So I saw some people commenting like Ignacio. I don't really know if he'll fit the squad, but maybe someone like a Hanko who's quite versatile. And like there's a Gertruder as well, who's quite a big of a brute. He can sort of play across the board. So maybe someone like that, someone that can accompany, like let Virgil, rest a bit. He's played a lot. So yeah, someone like that.
No, I agree. Like, I see Paul is going to love you because Hanko's his guy. So that's not surprising at all. Gertruida, I agree, can play all across the back four, and I would absolutely love that as a signing as well. But I think the way that we go back and forth on that is Liverpool in the last 24 years have very, very, very rarely poached a manager's immediate previous team or immediate previous players. It just doesn't happen. And of the Feyenoord players, I would be taking Mats Wiefer, Gertruida, and that would probably have been it. I wouldn't have taken Hanko purely because you could probably get better at younger for a little bit extra money, in my own opinion. But again, if it was Hanko, I wouldn't say no to it. But there are a multitude of different centre back options that are kind of coming up. There's like we've Leny Yoro that we apparently had a bid refused for, and £65 million is only £6 million off our club record. And if you're going to pay that for a guy who's due to come in and be a backup, well then game's gone at that point. If that's the kind of player you're going for. Carter, Marc Guehi, it's as you mentioned, you said about 55 to 60 million pounds in the group chat, and then it's just again it kind of leans more into Paul's point of if you're paying that for a guy, you'd want him to come in and start in the 11, and I don't see him starting currently against Kwanzaa Konate or Van Dijk, and he'd have to come in as a backup, and he doesn't then fit the mold of if we wanted somebody that plays the left centre back hybrid role, either as he's right footed. Now he's played both sides of centre back, but it is one of them weirdos. What do you think of Guehi himself, and would he even fit into the squad, and what price would you pay?
You know, this might be bad on me, but actually, honestly, watching him last night, I thought he was left-footed. I thought he was really good with sort of both feet. But I honestly think I really like Guehi. I remember seeing him play for sort of Swansea with when they had Ryan Brewster on loan from us, and I was really impressed. I think he got like back-to-back man of the matches in like 2 rounds of the playoffs, and I was really impressed. And I think I know what you guys mean, but I almost think sometimes we have to take the Liverpool glasses off and be a bit like, what would we say about a guy like Virgil van Dijk at Southampton right now? Would we all be saying, well, he plays for his team, is he good enough? I think Guehi, he's really outstanding on the ball. I like that he just come from the Chelsea academy, because no matter what people want to say, I think physically wise, a lot of the lads that come out from Chelsea are top in terms of like the physical profile. Like I think they're always really fit, really athletic, cover ground. I think a big thing for me is that I think he's a real leader. I think when you watch him, I think that's something that screams out towards me. I think a lot more than Konate, who is very good, and you could argue maybe is better in some ways. I think when things are going a bit crazy and we've seen the game turn into a bit of a basketball game, I think Guehi's someone that will help us calm down. That's a bit more like Matip, someone who's a bit more of a calmer head, who can, if Van Dijk is out, I think he can come in and sort of, he'd be in charge. And for me, I think it would be between him and Konate. And I think if we did sign Guehi, he would come in to start. I think it would change the system slightly. And I know it's hard to look at the numbers because he plays for Crystal Palace, who for a long time have had not the best managers and not the best tactical setup around them. But I'd like to see, I think, under the new manager, I think most of his probably ball playing stats will improve massively. And I just think he's really talented. I just think it is a risk. And actually, I think on FB Ref, it says he's 5'11", which if he is, that's a bit scary because that is probably too small. And I think, and I agree with what Paul said, but I would say in my lifetime, the best centre-back partnership was Van Dijk and was Joe Gomez before his big injury. So I'm not afraid if we think he's good enough to go slightly smaller with one of our centre-halves. So I think I'd be all over him for sort of 50 to 60.
No, it's look, again, if I trust Michael Edwards' computer, that's the way that I look at it realistically. And it obviously we see people here going off in the comments and everything about that of how easily we forget Pacho. I don't think anybody's forgotten him. It's just that there's been absolutely no rumours about him or anything at all to speak about, which can be either side of a coin of something's probably close or we've just moved on and we're not interested anymore. Because the rumour that came out initially was that we were looking to loan him straight back to Eintracht Frankfurt. And I'm like, what's the point in that if you're going to spend 50 million on a centre back? Like, you might as well just start him or start a youth guy. It's one of the two. Steve mentioned in here that he thinks Leny Yoro is joining Real Madrid. Lazy journalism linking up with LFC. It's not lazy journalism. It is a proper link because Liverpool obviously had a bid rejected for him. That was reported by Mundo Deportivo. I believe that's who reported it. And it's one of them that it is what it is. He's touted as a generational talent. Hiller mentions here that he is referred to it. Haven't used words like that about Guehi. Guehi's just solid. That's correct. And if you can spend 42 million on Leny Yoro, but have to spend 65 million on Marc Guehi, I'm pretty sure you take Leny Yoro every time. Hilariously also, because he becomes homegrown by the time he's 22 if you signed him right now, which is utterly hilarious. Considering the lad had spent the past 18 years in France but becomes homegrown in England for playing for 3 years. There's other defenders as well that have been linked there. Obviously, Steve, we've mentioned in here, with Todibo Diamande or Inacio to partner with them. Diamande would be a good shout. He's a very, very big physical defender. Inacio would be more the left back shout, if I'm being perfectly honest, but would be very good, similarly to a Colwill. But he wants Bayern Munich, apparently, and wants out of Chelsea. And James here mentioned that they want £50 million for Euro. That's everything, not just base fee, that's add-ons and the whole lot. God help me if Michael Edwards is using a MacBook. It is very interesting times, Paul. Obviously, we had a bid for Leny Yoro rejected. They want 50 million. Is it lazy journalism? Is he off to Madrid? Or do you believe that there's some smoke with this fire?
It's a little bit of both, actually, because one, I could say that I want Madrid, because literally every young player now who has some talent would jump at the chance to go to Real Madrid. So it's not. I can see why the name Real Madrid is popping up for every talented player around football. But let's face it, Madrid can't sign everybody. That's for sure. They are getting very picky, and why wouldn't they, right? So, and also agents are also trying to, push these narratives. Trying to get other interested clubs, Liverpool, City, United, whoever, to let's get a move now. Let's try to get this thing over the line now, because we don't want Madrid to come in. So there's a lot of nonsense going on right now in the transfer window. So it's part of lazy journalism, yes, but I just don't see us spending $50-60 million on a backup centre back. If Euro probably makes sense, because the guy is like 18, 19?
He's 18, yeah.
18. So if you're going to be investing that kind of money for the next 10, 12 years, then that makes a ton of sense. But no way are we going to be spending 60 million on Marc Guehi unless it's going to walk straight into the team. And I just don't see that happening. I see us signing a centre back that definitely will be left-footed, just because then there's more option for that person to contribute in the team right away, even if Verge is playing. But because if you look at the game yesterday with the Netherlands, their left back was they gotta play for Man City, centre back for Man City, and the backup, okay, and the backup left back is the centre back that plays for Tottenham, that Van de Ven. So the point I'm making now, it is a thing now for centre backs to be playing fullback, and is the type of player that you want to bring in when you're leading, by a goal and there's 5, 10, 12 minutes to go, and especially if you want to switch during the game to a back three. A back three does not suit a player like Robbo. So we definitely need a centre back, but a left-footed one that can cover at left back for those moments. So I just don't see anything with the Guehi rumor. Leny Yoro is right-footed, yes, but then he will be more of a long-term signing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just my thoughts there.
No, I completely agree with you, and the fact that Leny Yoro would immediately become homegrown, he wouldn't even be counted towards the count until he hits the age of 22, and then he'd become homegrown because he would have been with us for 3 years at that point. Just looking down through a couple of things here, Carter, because I seen one that would be very well. Where was it? It's something about, there was rumours that came out about Archie Gray. JMU's here asking about Archie Gray. Now, I spoke to some Leeds fans myself. Now, obviously, they're not the only authority on Leeds themselves, but their consensus of it is the only players that are probably going to leave this summer would be Somerville and maybe one other. But they think that Archie Gray is probably the only untouchable asset for them. How much is too much for Archie Gray, Carter, in your own opinion? Because we've had him mentioned a couple of times. We've had the question asked here of Paul as well. Paul, you can jump in at the end of this if you pay £50 million for Archie Gray. But I'll go to Carter first on it, and just how much is too much for Archie Gray, and would what's the best way to do business about that? Me personally, I think buy him and loan him back would probably be the best way to go about it, because they get to keep him for at least another year or two, and then they also get a gaggle of money on top of it too.
My big thing is with Archie Gray, I feel like we're in the wrong situation to sign him. I feel like as talented as he is, if Fabinho hadn't completely fallen off a cliff, I'd be all over it. But we need someone who's very good and ready to play now. I think Archie Gray is so talented. I think he's so good. And it might have been us two on a stream before, but I think I said he'd been training with the first team at Leeds since he was 15 under Bielsa, doing murder ball training sessions, which player says more physical than that. So for a normal 18-year-old, a bit like how Jude would have been, his legs are probably, he's played and sort of got the minutes of a 21, 22-year-old already. And I think for us, my issue would be as well, if we loan him back, how many games is he going to play in the Championship? Physical league, what if he gets a bad injury there? Should we maybe bring him in and give him minutes to be ready? So I think it's very difficult, but the only way I'd kind of understand us maybe spending 50 to 60, 70 million on him is if we see Bajcetic as a number 8, and if we think he really needs to be eased back into playing, because we do forget how little minutes he's played last year. And I think to ask him to actually be Endo's cover is a big job, and you don't want to run him into the ground. So I'd maybe say 50 to 70. I think he is really talented. I just think it's such awkward timing for us to sign someone who's 18 and plays number 6.
Yeah, I think he's just too young yet, and I don't think we'd end up paying for something. Like, I think he, like as Jamie has mentioned here, looked 18 in the Championship promotion match, so does need to develop that level of an upside. I think the only possible way that a deal gets done with that is by buying him, loaning him back, and that way then Leeds get the benefit of having the money and having him. Excuse me. It's Jesus, no. No. Not even a chance of that. As much as I am not Curtis Jones' biggest fan, but he's worth at least 60, 70 million in this market alone. And if you if you need to offer Jones and 30 million for even one of, never mind the two of the Gray brothers, not a chance. I wouldn't go near them. I just think they're too young yet, and as well as Jamie's mentioned, if you're sending Jones down to the Championship, he'd have a connection. There's not a chance of that happening. But other centre back options that have come up for us in the past while, there was one that was linked to us not long ago, back in January. 24-year-old defender Omar Solé, who's a Frenchman, who's currently playing with RB Salzburg, currently at the moment over in Austria. They'd be looking for about 10 to 13 million pounds for the Frenchman. It's interesting. Pep has gone to Salzburg, hasn't he? I was thinking that. Possibilities grow. Patricio, he is he's 6'3". He's a big guy. His numbers seem to track very, very similarly to Konate, Van Dijk, and Kwanzaa, in how he's very, very good in the air. He's very, very good on the ground. He has a lot of defensive actions, but that's because Salzburg are more of a defensive team and he's asked to defend more. Very good with his progressive passes. Very good with his forward passing percentage. It seems to match up really well with that sort of a 3 rotation that we have there. It kind of screams Michael Edwards' laptop working overtime for that one and just pulling a gem out of another RB team that we always seem to do, like we did with Konate. Could there be any? Now it's noted that it's an unnamed English club, along with the likes of United and maybe one or two others. I think Bayern Munich and Milan too, but unnamed English club. We were linked with them in January. Apparently, we went in to have a conversation and then nothing came of it after that. Could it be at all possible that we could be the unnamed English club? And what do you think of him as a player? If you've seen any of him, or even from the description that I've given you there, what would you reckon he could do for us? 6'3", big, strong, physical guy. He's good in the air and good in the ground. Mirrors to me a Van Dijk or a Konate kind of a job.
Yeah, no. I'm to be honest, I don't know. I have never heard of the person before. But based off your description, it sounds like an incredible player. Hopefully, like I said, he's only 23, 24, you say?
24.
24. So still has time to grow, still has time to like develop, but he's more into the game. I know that especially the 10 to 13 mil, that's more Edwards type of thing. I know that he's probably on top of a short list. And he might even be the type of person that gets announced to us just, like out of the blue, out of nowhere. Seems like the type of signing he would make, like hopefully a gem. So yeah, I could see that happening. Seeing as I do see that we're using the Leny Yoro as something like a smoke screen, that maybe like we're pushing out there, kind of like we did with Caicedo, then we come in with someone else. But I'm hoping that they're actually thinking about this properly, of who they actually want. Maybe someone for the future, and then someone for now as well. So yeah, just seeing who we think's available, who we think's good enough.
Yeah, because obviously we have the one for the future seems to be Leny Yoro, and I hope that one comes through, because I scouted him about 12 months ago for us. I say scouted, very loose use of the term. And he was one of the guys that I mentioned at the time, and now everybody's after him, and I kind of feel a little bit proud of that, I won't lie. But I mentioned that he would have been a fantastic find at a centre back, because that's something that we will need, and we would have needed in the future, and lo and behold, we do need it. Paul, Euro's the one for the future. Caicedo was the smokescreen and Endo was our prime target. Did I get that right? I think it was more the fact that we just threw the money in there because he was the only big money name on the market at that time, and everybody else had been gone, and we had to focus on other positions at that point. We'd already spent 150 million at that point, so that was kind of a Hail Mary shot. Didn't work out, and thank God it didn't, because God, he was awful, and Endo bodied him in the Carabao Cup final. Picked him up and threw him to the ground, basically. I don't know if anybody remembers that or seen that, but that's what I remember seeing. Endo and him got into a physical duel, and Endo just used one hand, shoved him off him, and shoved him to the ground. And I was like, oh, that's worth the 18 million that we paid for Endo right there. But Paul, Hanko has also been touted as somebody to come in too, and it is one of them that he's linked with both ourselves and Leicester, trying to get to Slovakian. About 29 million euro. If he could be the one for now, so to speak, to come in and be that gadget man along with Joe Gomez, and then Leny Yoro is your guy that's behind learning the ropes. I say learning the ropes. He's clearly good enough at the moment. He can nearly come in and start, I feel. But coming into a brand new team, learning a brand new system, and then entering the starting lineup, because I don't think one of either Virgil van Dijk or Konate is not long for this team, and I don't know how long they're going to be here, but one of them is going in the next 2 years, be it Konate due to his injuries or be it Van Dijk due to his age. It'll be one of them, and we would then need another person to be able to step up immediately, and then all of a sudden you now have a 20-year-old Leny Yoro who's developed, grown, and is ready to step into a bigger role in the team. Out of the two of them, who do you think, if we were to sign the two of them, who do you think would be the more important player? Would it be Leny Yoro, the guy for the future, or would it be Hanko, the gadget man who can play a left back, play a centre back, and basically three of the four back four positions?
Well, it's certainly two different profiles, that's for sure. Hanko is the kind of guy that can help you right now. I like him a lot, primarily because I can see him contributing over the next couple of years. Remember now, we are a team that always wants to win every year. We're not just building for the future, even though the future is important. So a guy like Hanko is the kind of guy that, to me, I would see him as an upgrade over Tsimikas, right? Not the kind of guy who would demand to start every game, but the kind of guy who can He can come in and play centre back when needed. We're playing roughly 60 games in our competition next season. Verge, you probably don't want him to play more than 40, 45 games. So there's 15 games there where Hanko would start at that left side of centre back. There's another 10, 12 games in which he can start instead of Robbo, right? And there's another 10, 15 games in which he can come on and give us 20 minutes. So he's the kind of guy that I think for £25 million, it's a cracking deal, right? Because at 26, he's at that right age. He's experienced. He's an international. And as I said, he's not your main guy. Whilst a Euro, you're looking at a 10-year project, right? The other guy that we were talking about here for 10 million, I'd never heard of him before, so I can't comment. But you don't normally spend 10 million pounds on a 24, 25-year-old. That kind of money you spend on a young player or a couple of young players, right? That if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, then you really don't lose much. So I don't know anything about him. But I think there is room to have both Hanko and Yoro being signed because they have, I mean, it's not crazy expensive because you'll be investing, what, 65 million for both? 70 million for both? I think that would be a cracking deal.
Yeah, I don't disagree. If you could get the two of them for 70 million, which is what it looks like it could be, price wise, I think it's 29 million pounds and then 50 million. So it'll be about 80 million for the two of them. 80 million pounds for the two of them.
29 million euros, isn't it?
29 million pounds, 35 million euros.
Okay.
So
but he wants to come, so you can negotiate. I mean,
you could probably bring it down. Yeah, 100%. You could probably bring it down. It's one of them that's if the player wants to move and the player is looking for a move, very similar to how we've seen with Levi Colwill saying that he wants out of Chelsea. I say him saying it, his entourage has said it, but it is an interesting one. It's a great
15 million for Tsimikas.
Yeah, and then
15 for him.
Yeah, we get more than 15 million for Costas Tsimikas. That'd be robbery if we only got 15 million for him.
So that's net spend 55 million. I think
I could see us getting 25 to 30 million pounds for Costas Tsimikas, just purely from how the market is currently at the moment. That's on the market. I'm not saying he's worth that. I'm just Levi Colwill isn't worth 80 million pounds, no matter what you say, Carter. Kvaratskhelia isn't worth 120 million euro. Neves isn't worth 120 million euro. Florentino Luis isn't worth 100 million euro. It's just the way the market is currently at the moment. It is what it is, and I think you could get 30 million for Costas Tsimikas if he was to go, and then that frees up a non-homegrown spot, which then is immediately replaced by Hanko or the more experienced centre back that does come in, and then you have a non-homegrown or not an underage. I say underage, under 21 centre back who then can grow into the role and become a homegrown product, which would be absolutely fantastic. And Ian, nobody's forgetting about Kwanzaa. He's the future at that centre back position, but again, you have two people beside him in Konate, who is odds-on favourite to miss about 10 games a season, and then you have Virgil van Dijk, who Father Time is catching up with very rapidly, and you need to future-proof. So then all of a sudden you get an 18-year-old that's homegrown in the next 3 years, and now you have two homegrown centre backs that are your centre back pairing for the next 8-9 years until one of them fucks off to Real Madrid. Basically, that's more the issue. It's not forgetting about Kwanzaa, but you do have two centre back positions that you need to play. Van Dijk's not going to be around forever, and that day is coming sooner and sooner. And Konate loves an injury, especially a muscle injury in his legs. Steve here mentioning that Tsimikas is 15 million value max. I wouldn't sell him. I'd let his deal run out if that's all we were getting. To be perfectly honest with you, there's no point in selling him then, because we're not making a profit on that sale. So you might as well just keep him and let his thing run out and him be there as a body as for numbers. But Carter, who's your centre back dream pairing? Because I think we could end up getting two of them. So give me your two centre back dream pairing. Money is no issue, so I guarantee you Levi Colwill is going to be one of them.
I think it's just really difficult, because I think the way I kind of look at it now, I'm not going to just hate on your guy, Hanko Paul, But I look at him and I think he's good. Is he ever going to be elite? And I know what you're saying about these prices of players, but I think sometimes you are going to have to pay when they have the potential. I think the issue with someone like Kostas Tsimikas is we've seen he's never going to be elite. I think in my opinion, he's like a poor man's Luca Digne. I feel like if you're a bad team and you have no set piece takers, he'd be very good to have. But defensively, he's not good. And I just think we have to sign people. And I'm not saying this is what would happen with Hanko. I feel like now, and this is going to be harsh on Joe Gomez, if Joe Gomez or Hanko started a game in the league, in a good game, we'd go, oof, I'm not keen. And I think we need to try and move away from that. We need to sign players that are either going to be elite or are elite. So I think for me, I'd probably put Levi Colwell out there, as you said. And I think you'd have to say him and Yoro. But I think more realistic, I've never said Guehi because I never thought he was attainable. I thought he'd be more. I thought he'd be 80, 85 million would be sort of his evaluation mark. Because I think he's played next to Joachim Andersen, who's sort of the more laid back, like ball playing thing. I'd say him and maybe a bit of a wild card. I'd say Schlotterbeck from Dortmund. I think he looked really, really impressive in the final. So I'd say sort of any of those four, but probably Levi Colwell and Leny Yoro would be my two dream. But obviously that's completely unrealistic that we'd be able to sign the two of them together.
I just think it's the money side of it and the fact that Levi Colwell, he's homegrown, but he would also then Chelsea would try and charge through the nose for him because he is pure profit, which is why I think his rumoured move to Bayern will probably happen because there's no Premier League tax on it. And I just think that I don't know why he'd go to Bayern because playing for Vincent Kompany clearly doesn't sound the most appealing in the world. It's one of them that is just myself, dream signings. I know you mentioned about Hanko never being elite, but we don't need him to be elite. If we were to sign him, let's say, and then also sign a Leny Yoro or a Levi Colwell, for example, you then have somebody that's 26 years old that has been there, done it. I say been there, done it, has multiple years experience playing at a top division in whatever country that they were in and can then come in and fill gaps where needed. While I understand your point of saying we need to go for big name guys that are going to come in and make an impact, you also need to have solid rotation behind them, that the drop off isn't like a cliff, which is where I think Paul mentioned about Hanko coming in and doing that. That's more so I think the point behind a Hanko move.
But I think for that amount of money, because for us it is, for Liverpool it is a lot of money. I think those are where you go and find. Yeah, for Hanko, that's a lot of money. I think, in my opinion,
Really?
I think
considering the market that's there at the moment, and
I
2 or 3 years younger in Guehi, as you mentioned, for double that.
It's night and day. I think seeing a bit of both of them, I just think if he was free, I'd be all over him. If he was 10 million, because I get that, because me using Real Madrid as an example, Lucas Vasquez, Nacho Fernandez, but I just don't think.
Carter, would you swap Hanko for Tsimikas? In other words, sell Tsimikas and spend the same money to buy Hanko. So your net spend is zero. Would you do that?
I'd swap Tsimikas for Johnny Evans at this point. I just think he's so... It's not to hate on him, but I just think no one's confident when he's defending. I think the last game when he played in... Was it one of the European games? Maybe Atalanta. It looked like he was running in slow motion. It was just I think really
he was fine in the league after he had a run of games. And then when he ended up starting in the Europa League again, it was like starting from square one. He had a rocky start, but then the second he got a couple of games under him, I was like, okay, you can clearly see there's a player there. It's very hard for a player to sit in the bench when Andy Robertson in front of you. Very similar to Kelleher as well. Very Conor Bradley came in and lit the world on fire immediately. But then obviously you have a Kelleher and you have a Tsimikas that came in and it took them a game or two. I still have chats saved in that group chat of me saying Kelleher is going to win us something this season, and somebody said that if Kelleher starts in a cup final, we're going to lose it. And lo and behold, he was the savior of that game, and I have that chat saved, and that's being shared. And the specific person that I'm going to share that to, and I can't wait. But Patricio, this is all news to you. Patricio is obviously new to the channel, but over the course of the season, I started saving everybody's kind of hot takes throughout the season. and stuff that's aged like milk. And it's absolutely beautiful to go back down through it. There's currently 140 messages saved that I have to go through. So this is going to be fun. Carter, you amount for about 80 of them. I'm joking. There's only maybe 5 or 6 of them there from you. Everybody else is, there's a smattering of everybody. There was Endo slander. There was Gomez slander from myself. I admit that. First stream I was ever on, I said it needed to be shot from a cannon, and he proved me wrong. There was Kelleher slander. Obviously, there was Nunez slander, and then there was a whole host of other slander that was put into it as well. Somebody said that they were, after 5 minutes of seeing Endo, they were close to writing them off, and is what it is. Endo done what he needed to do. But Patricio, I'll throw the same question to yourself before we finish up, of centre back pairings. Do you agree with Carter's sentiment that we should, like, you, in the market that's there today, you kind of need to spend money, and that doesn't necessarily seem to be Liverpool's moniker. But with Edwards coming back, who do you feel he may target? Like, what would be your profile for a centre back or 2 centre backs that we would get to help now and also future proof at the same time? Put yourself in Edwards' shoes.
Okay, well, I think you'd look at Leny Yoro. He's for the future, definitely 100%. Like Paul said, you get a good 10 years out of him plus. So he's definitely one for the future. At the moment, a person that came to mind as well, we forgot about Hincapié as well, who could play centre-back and left-back, same as Hanko. I think Hanko is a good option as well for the here and now. And then, see, the problem with Guehi and I have with Colwell is the fact that it's the English tax as well. The amount of money they're wanting for the player that we're getting. Like, don't get me wrong, Colwell for a bit less than that, like maybe 50, 60, then yeah, you pounce on it maybe. But also, when a player is not pushing to go to your club as well, and he's like been reluctant to come to the Liverpool, especially last season as well, it just kind of shows you the mindset. So I'm thinking we need someone that, like a Hincapié, like a Pacho, someone that is ready to come in, or a Hanko. And yeah, I know Chelsea are very reluctant to sell, especially to us. So I think we need someone from the Bundesliga, someone like a Pacho or a Hincapié. So yeah, someone like them, or even a Hanko.
I'll give you one name quickly before we go, Stephen.
Go.
I went into watching the Italian game to keep an eye on Bastoni, but I came out really impressed with his partner. I think this was Riccardo Caliofori. Carter can pronounce his name better than I. But that guy, I think he's a left
Bologna. Yeah.
Yes, I was really impressed with that guy, and he's a young guy, and he can play left back too. So maybe.
Yeah, I think Bologna are getting absolutely fleeced, and I think they're trying to be hesitant to sell anybody because they've lost their manager, Xerxes as well. I think that's the name of the striker, or Xerxes, or however you pronounce his name. He's the low release clause as well, and I think Bologna absolutely overperformed and then lost their manager. And I think Bologna are going to go absolutely tumbling back down the order now. And it's a shame because great team, great play. I've been there many times myself. It's an absolutely fantastic part of the world. But it is one of them. Obviously, we just seen a couple of things here. Steve mentioning that Gomez to replace De Ligt of Bayern. I don't think De Ligt is going anywhere purely because his salary is through the roof. Probably the only place I see De Ligt going is Man United because they'd be stupid enough to pay his salary, and he's more injured than any player that they even have at the moment. And I don't think Bayern are going to be buying somebody like Joe Gomez purely because they might get Levi Colwill because they'll get him on the cheap and he's much younger and can play 2 positions. I don't think they'll go for Joe Gomez. I think we would fight to keep Joe Gomez. I also don't think they'll end up signing a centre-back myself because they already signed a guy from Stuttgart for a couple of tens of millions of euro. They hit his release clause and just signed him, done and dusted, and that went under the radar too. Big guy, 6 foot. I think he's Korean. I can't remember. But him and Kim Min-jae will probably be their centre-back pairing going forward. JB with no Paul Carter debates today. That's the first. I should be in the group chat. It happens every day. But it's all love. It's all love. That's the name there, Paul. You mentioned Riccardo Calafiori. He's good. He is good. I was very impressed by him as well. Obviously, alongside Bastoni, and as you mentioned, Carter, Bastoni kind of benefits from a back 5 tax, but he still is good at the same time. It would have been a serious one to get him. But guys, we are going to leave it there for this evening. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We had just about 5,000 people in here watching with us. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. And make sure that if you're watching from Twitter or X, that you jump over to our YouTube page. The link is in the bio. Make sure you leave a like and a subscription as well while you're there if you do enjoy it. And Daniela, it's not. It is an English tax. Historically, English players going to English clubs have cost an awful lot more purely because they get inflated by media, transfers, whatnot, and you're also selling to a rival as well. If all four of us were four teams in the same league, I'm not going to be nice to them and sell player X to a competitor for a good price. I'm going to try and absolutely rinse them out of every euro or every pound that I possibly can. And as well, as Jamie's mentioned, homegrown, which is a massive thing now in the league, which is why I think you'll see an awful lot more players getting bought younger that will develop into homegrown. But if it was me and Patricio in the Premier League and Carter and Paul in the Bundesliga, I'd much quicker sell to Carter and Paul because I don't see them 3 or 4 times a year as I would Patricio, because he's in the Premier League and I might see him in the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup or something like that. Whereas I'd only see Carter and Paul in maybe a European match where I'd only have to play him once. Meaning that if you're selling a good player, you rinse the local teams and you sell cheaper to foreign teams. That's essentially the best way to go about it. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. It has been... that's what I meant. It's not a tax. It's just how it is. But it's called an English tax. That's just the way that it's called. But thank you guys so much for joining us on this Monday evening. We will be back again tomorrow at 7 p.m. We've changed our time of the streams to go from 7 p.m. just so that we can obviously let everybody go before the Euros start. Italy is just about to start kicking off now against Austria, or France against Austria. Apologies. So we get to see Kylian Mbappe in all of his glory and get to see how bad William Saliba is as a centre-back when they should have started Konate. But it is what it is. We're not the manager, unfortunately. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Hope everybody has a wonderful evening, and we will see you guys tomorrow.